Are you sick of the same old sports talk radio shows? Then tune in Sunday mornings from 11 to noon and listen to the Sports Skillet radio show. We cover a wide variety of sports topics and we'll have special guests and calls from our listeners. If you are over it, bored to death, and have had enough of the routine sports talk, tune in to Sports Skillet Radio Sundays from 11 to noon. Sports talk served up with hot sauce.
And once again, we are back live and better than ever on the Sports Skillet Radio Show from 11 to 1 today, or 11 to noon today. And I am joined in the studio as usual with
Larry Charlotte,
Ethan Charlotte,
and we have special guest Big Papa
Pete Fusco. Thank you.
Yes. A lot of stuff to talk about this week. A lot of stuff going on. I guess we can start off with the NFL schedule getting released this week. The NFL schedule dropped, and just want to get your opinions on how you guys like the schedule so far, how it breaks out.
Well, I like the fact that my Steelers don't have to basically leave the Eastern time zone the whole season. The furthest they go is Tennessee. So that's in favor for them. It's going to be a nice easy season for them.
I totally agree. I love that the Steelers are on the East Coast. It's going to make it much easier to watch for us. So
but opening the season, San Francisco, Seattle. That's a great game to start the season with.
Well, it is a good game.
It definitely is. I'm also going to enjoy the Thanksgiving game because the Eagles get to play on Thanksgiving this year, playing in Dallas. I thought that was a nice twist that the NFL gave.
That's going to be upsetting Thanksgiving.
Well, only for the Philly fans, and that's fine.
No, for the Cowboys, because we know Chip Kelly is
going to be a nauseating game to watch while you're eating.
Well, if you're a Giants fan, of course, because you'd have to root for either the Dallas, either Cowboys or the Eagles.
I'm going to root for the Giants or send home eating turkey.
Can we root for the stadium to blow up? I mean, is that fair enough?
No, you can't root for the stadium to blow up. No, that would be wrong. But
where are they playing? Whoa, where are they playing? They're playing in Dallas?
They're playing in Dallas,
yeah. So let's just hope that giant scoreboard just collapses onto the field. I'm not saying anyone has to get hurt, but that'll definitely stop the game.
Wait a minute. Dallas has some pretty nice cheerleaders. We don't want them to
exactly. I'm not saying
if it fell on Romo, that's okay.
I'm okay with no one getting hurt as long as it stops the game.
No, because we need the Eagles to win the division.
No, we do not.
Yes, we do.
You do.
Yes.
Yeah,
sure.
you do.
Listen, Jay, keep dreaming. Keep dreaming. It's not going to happen in this lifetime. Especially with Potato Chip Kelly as the coach. You got rid of your number one receiver. Who is the little baby Foles going to throw to?
Well, we got a lot of them. Jeremy Maclin, Riley Cooper.
Just because Deshaun Jackson had some family outside of a normal family organization, you get rid of him? And you're going to send him to Washington? Come on.
We didn't send him to Washington. He
went to Washington to come back to Philly and just whoop all over you guys.
Well,
exactly.
That probably
between RJ3 and the way he can scramble and run, and then Deshaun Jackson's the way he can catch and his speed. Come on.
Well, I mean, for that scenario to work, RG3 has to stay healthy for more than 5 minutes.
Well, that's true.
But they have a pretty good backup.
They do.
Cousins.
Cousins.
Actually,
but
actually,
RG3,
Jackson's probably better off if Cousins is in there than RG3 because the ball gets thrown more. Washington. Listen, Washington has done this before with getting these high-priced big names, and they find a way to screw it up. But that being said, they have screwed the Eagles. And for Jackson, at least 2 games during the season is going to come in,
amped up.
Right.
He absolutely, no question about it. He will come in, and no doubt about it. Deshaun Jackson is going to come back. He's going to be amped up. He's going to want to have an outstanding game against the Eagles just to show the Eagles and the fans that, they were wrong to get rid of him. No question about it. That happens all the time with athletes that leave.
No, it only happens all the time with the Eagles.
No.
Like a few years ago when they got rid of T.O., when they should have got rid of Donovan. Not T.O. So they did the same thing. They do the same thing now.
No, they ended up getting rid of both Donovan and T.O.
They got rid of Donovan or T.O. first, and they kept Donovan. They kept puking in huddles. The only Super Bowl he won is on Madden.
Well,
and at halftime he lost because he kept puking.
Well, that's true. The Eagles did not, but they got to the Super Bowl with Donovan McNabb.
And did what? And with T.O. And did what?
Well,
and lost.
They did.
Right.
They did.
And T.O. probably had the best game of his career with the Eagles in that game.
And they still lost.
And they still lost. And they got rid of him. So, it shows how brilliant the Eagles are.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry, when did the Eagles win a Super Bowl?
We're building towards that.
I can answer that for you.
Never.
So what you're saying is you're building it up so that it's more satisfying. Because I got to tell you, being a Steelers fan, 6 is pretty satisfying.
It really is.
So 1 will be really satisfying to you guys.
Yeah, wait. Hold on. Yeah. If for whatever reason the Crapadelphia Tweety Birds happen to win the Super Bowl with Potato Chip Kelly this year and win, they're still not in the same league.
They are.
They're not. No, they're not.
Yes,
they're not in the same league as the Steelers. They're not in the same league as the Giants. You know what league they're in? They're in the same realm as the Seattle Seahawks. That's it. That's it.
I'll give you this. They're a step above, say, the Cleveland Browns.
But Seattle won a Super Bowl, though.
That is true.
Yeah, but they're not in the Giants or the Cowboys or even the Redskins league.
They
it's one.
Well,
let me ask you this question. I've been dying to ask you this question, Mr. Selner.
This should get
Let me ask you
interesting.
this. Do you think the New York Giants are a championship franchise?
I think they have a championship.
It's a yes or no question.
And I'm getting to that. I'm saying that
it's a yes or no. Circle 1. Yes or no.
They are a championship. They have a championship history, but are they currently a championship team? I would have to say no.
No, I asked you: is the New York Giants a championship franchise? Yes, they are. Is the Crapadelphia Tweety Birds a championship franchise? No, they have not won a championship. So even if they win one, they're still not in the same league as the Giants or the Steelers or the Redskins. End of story, right?
Cowboys. Or the 49ers.
And
Shall we go on?
Yeah, expansion teams that were created after the Tweety Birds were created have won Super Bowls. Eagles have not. Is it this year that they're going to win a Super Bowl? I don't think so. You know what? Potato Chip Kelly does not have his dipping sauce right now. Matter of fact, he traded his dipping sauce to Washington.
He did. There was no trade. They released Deshaun Jackson.
So they gave him to Washington for no compensation. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. They did not receive any compensation because they released Deshaun Jackson.
Right. And now RG3, on top of his ability to scramble in the huddle and run, now has a weapon as a receiver.
Well,
okay, and they get it.
And they have a very good tight end,
and as Washington gets a sound defense, they're gonna tromp all over the Eagles. It's again another stupid move by the Philadelphia Tweety Birds.
No, we don't know how the move is going to play out yet because the draft hasn't happened yet. So the Eagles could get.
What does the draft have to do with a stupid move by the Tweety Birds?
It has a lot to do with it.
No, it does not.
It does.
How many draft players actually play their first season?
It depends on the position. Depends on the team.
And who are they going after? Obviously, they need a defensive line. Now they need a better receiver.
They will be going after probably a rushing linebacker, safety. They could use help there. And since they released Deshaun Jackson, a wide receiver.
Honestly, there's only 3 places the Eagles really need help. And that is offense, defense, and special teams.
That's it. He's right. That's true.
Other than that, they're well-rounded.
No, they have the core of a good team. They, as I said, a lot of the
compared to what? This is a serious question. Compared to what? Because I'm looking at the division, and I mean Washington's probably the most improved in the NFC East. Right, so Washington's the most improved. The Giants, I don't know. Dallas is going to be, their regular strong first half.
Yeah, they're
drop off at the second half.
They're only good during the season, postseason.
Right. So, all right. So I think if Washington pulls all their improvements together and RG3 can stay healthy, Washington's got a chance of finishing first or second.
I would agree with that.
Right?
Absolutely.
I think Dallas will probably finish first in that division and then crap the bed in the postseason, as they usually do, right? So then it'll be a battle of Philadelphia and the Giants pulling up the rear there.
See, I disagree. I think Dallas is about a 500 team, kind of like they were last year. I don't think they've improved enough this offseason where you could say that they're with the Eagles or they closed the gap between the Eagles and Washington. I will say that Washington's probably the most improved team in the division. Washington, with Deshaun Jackson, like I said, they have a good tight end, good running back, quarterback. If RG3 comes back healthy this year with the new head coach, who obviously has something to prove, Jay Gruden wants to get to the level that his brother is at, so he's coming in with something to prove. So yeah, I will say that Washington is probably going to be the most improved team.
I think it's going to be between, honestly, not because I'm a Giants fan, Giants and Dallas. For the simple fact is, if you remember RG3 his first year, the whole Shanahan offense, it took people a year to figure that out. Mm-hmm. Okay, this following year they figured it out. They pretty much didn't go anywhere. Same thing with the Tweety Birds and Potato Chip Kelly. Him putting pictures of Sylvester Stallone and other, art crafts and stuff like that on the sideline. It took a good year for teams to figure his scheme out. Now that they figured it out, I don't think they're going to have a very successful season. That's why I think it's going to be a toss-up.
And that was going to be my next point, is I don't think Dallas has bridged the gap. I think Philadelphia has lowered the gap.
That could be too.
I agree.
Losing Deshaun is going to be a blow. And it's unknown now how Chip Kelly is going to compensate for the loss of Deshaun, because they don't have that speedy wide receiver to stretch the field and open things up underneath for the Riley Coopers and the Jeremy Maclins and anybody else that they throw out there. They don't have that speedy wide receiver, and that's one of the questions that have been brought up is Riley Cooper's success last season. Was it due to having Deshaun Jackson open things up on the opposite side of the field, and he was able to get single coverage? And
that's exactly the thing. And I don't think that the Eagles have a double play threat, a double coverage threat. I don't see Maclin being a guy that people need to double cover. Cooper's not a guy that needs to be double covered. So you're going to have a lot of single coverage. A single coverage can cover those guys, is what I'm saying. You don't need double coverage to cover those guys, which means you have more open at the line to put pressure on the quarterback. It opens up a lot more in the playbook when you don't have to double cover anybody.
Oh, it does. Absolutely.
And the Eagles' check-down receiver is going to be worthless.
Right. So Philadelphia won the division last year at 10-6. I think 9-7 wins that division this year.
Yeah, I agree.
It could. It could. I also think that looking at the way the schedule breaks out, looking at the Giants, they have a rough stretch where they play after their bye week. Going into their bye week, they play at Philadelphia, then at Dallas.
Well, that's not a rough stretch playing in Philly.
Well, it will be. Then they have their bye week, but then coming out of their bye week, the Giants are at home against the Colts, which I think is going to be tough. Then they have to travel to Seattle. Then they're home against San Fran, and then they face another tough division matchup with Dallas again. That could be a rough stretch for the Giants.
Well, I think playing in Seattle, Eli's never played good in Seattle, and that's going to be a tough game. Playing San Francisco at home, we pretty much wiped the floor with them the past couple of years, but that was in Candlestick Park. Eli kind of plays differently in Giant Stadium, but, we'll see. He came off a horrible year last year, and I'll admit that as a big Giants fan. It was horrible. And the only way to get eliminated from the playoffs is have Eli keep throwing interceptions, and that's what he did. So this year, hopefully, he's able to regroup.
It's a question of which Eli shows up this year.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
There's Eli. Eli is that two-headed monster. You either have the really good Eli or the bad Eli, and it doesn't seem like it's a week-to-week thing. It's a season-to-season thing, or a half-season-to-half-season. But the Giants' protection is what's going to be key to Eli playing well, and so it depends on how that line plays out.
Well, I think we're going after an offensive lineman this year.
I agree.
And that's been the big thing right now. It's everybody talks about these young quarterbacks, but it's really those young offensive linemen the last few years coming out of the draft who have been making a hit. You got the Longs who came out a few years ago.
Sure.
And stuff like that. It's if those young offensive linemen come out and be healthy, and if the Giants can get a good young offensive lineman, I think to protect Eli, particularly protect his blind side.
Well, I hope he realized the whooping his brother took in the Super Bowl. I hope he comes out with the mentality that he's got to regain that Manning respect to that last name and puts a whooping on everybody. But you know what? We have the whole summer to get through in preseason, so. As long as the Eagles don't go nowhere, I'm happy.
But they will be going places.
Well,
the basement is someplace to go, I
guess.
It is, but, that's where...
Each division needs a supporting team to hold it up.
And that could be the Giants or the Cowboys this year for the NFC East.
You can't change the... bleed green Eagle mentality fans. They always think every year they're the Super Bowl bound, and it's funny. Even though the Giants didn't make the playoffs, the Eagles still don't have a Super Bowl, so that doesn't matter. To me, I always say the Giants can only win 2 games this year. I'll be happy as long as they're against the Eagles.
True. It's going to be. Appears to me it's going to be a tight division race. Any way you cut it. I think.
But you know what? Each of those 4 teams need to reestablish as the NFC East as a dominant division. And for the past couple of years, it has not been a dominant division.
There are different degrees of being a tight race, right? It could be a tight race amongst really good teams. This is going to be a tight race amongst mediocre teams.
Yeah.
I think you have a bunch of mediocre teams. I don't see more than a 9-7 winning that division. I don't see anybody being 10-11 wins in that division.
Exactly.
It's going to be tough because, again, we have to.
I have to throw this in. I don't see the Steelers winning a game next year.
A game. Oof.
Because he's cracking on my Giants. But
no, I think the Steelers will be able.
I think the Steelers are 10-16.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, especially with the way that they don't really have to travel anywhere.
We don't have to go west at all.
I think Benji has one more ring in him, just like Eli. I think he's got another ring, maybe 2, but I think Benji's got one more. If he can keep his mind in the game and not on other things, he could.
Yeah, he's married. He's got a baby. I think things will settle down for him. Listen, I don't condone the kind of person he is, but he's a hell of a quarterback.
Yeah. He is,
and he might be slowing down. He's getting a little older, but he's still one of the toughest quarterbacks to take down.
I agree.
And if they ever in the next couple of years get protection for him, he could really come back to his.
Well, who is Steelers looking for in the draft? Are they looking to bring in old linemen?
This is my area of knowledge. It depends on who you listen to. Some people are saying they're going offensive line first round. Some people are saying that's going to get pushed back a little bit. I'm under the impression it's getting pushed back a little bit, and they're looking more for depth right now, guys they can develop. Because if you really watch the Steelers last year, the last 3-4 games of the season, their line really came together. They weren't a great line by any means, but they came together and they played well. So I think
so they're not looking towards next season. They're looking towards future seasons.
Yeah, they're going to take the guys they have now, keep them maybe 4th, 5th round, take a guard or a tackle, someone who can possibly play both, and develop them into a starter.
Well, that's a good idea. I mean, they're ahead of the Super Bowl race with 6. I mean, the next closest team would be San Francisco, but
5. Yeah,
I don't think that's going to happen for Kaepernick this year.
Yeah, no. Listen, I think if you watch the Steelers over the last 10, 12 years, consistency has been the key. They've really, they've been high, they've come down a little bit, but they've never fallen to to the basement. You know, I mean, last year was a bad season for them, and they still almost made the playoffs. I mean, in the last 10 years, they really haven't had that horrible, horrible season. So I don't have a problem with rebuilding. I think rebuilding is a good thing. The Steelers have done a great job of letting players go just before they want big money and filling that spot with good young players and keeping the consistency. You know, and the fact that we've had 3 head coaches in the last 30-something years. Stability. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem with the Steelers having a losing season. I don't think they're going to have a losing season this year. I think they looking at the schedule, I mean, they start right off the bat with Cleveland week 1, at home week 3 against Carolina, Tampa Bay, Jacksonville. I mean, these aren't, and then
Carolina's tough. Carolina's tough.
I agree, but it's at they're at Carolina on Sunday night. I mean, national television. Steelers play up in those positions. You're right. You know, week 6 we're back in Cleveland, and we have Houston. You know, I think there's a group of games there that the Steelers can really build some momentum towards. You know, they come back after their bye week, which the Steelers generally play well after their bye week when they have time to get healthy, and their bye week is late. It's week 12,
which I think is great.
Right.
Especially if they're on the way into the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. And then so after their bye week, they have New Orleans at home, at Cincinnati, at Atlanta, and then they finish up with 2 games at home with Kansas City and Cincinnati. So those are tough games, but they're after the bye week and a chance to get healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they can't. I mean, before their bye week, they play mediocre teams. So
they play Tennessee, they play the Jets, which I'll be at that game.
You don't want them to get cocky going into the bye week and then come out, because Cincinnati always plays them tough. And playing New Orleans in the Superdome, that's going to be tough. Yeah. So you don't want them to come into their bye week cocky.
No, they're playing New Orleans at home.
Oh, at home.
They're at home for New Orleans.
Yeah. They're at home against New Orleans.
Oh, that's going to be difficult for Drew Brees.
So after the bye week, their 5 games after the bye week, 3 of them are at home, including the last 2. So, you know, I just think that gives them a chance to get healthy, and that gives them a chance to game plan. You know, you get 2 weeks to game plan against New Orleans. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's really going to help you out right there.
And you'll have a pretty good sense of where New Orleans is this year, because I mean that's week 13.
They're dangerous team.
Yeah. So,
I'm kind of looking forward to that marquee matchup between Vic and Roethlisberger on the Steelers schedule. That could be an interesting game for them.
Yeah, that's week 10.
Week 10, going into the Meadowlands.
And this is the second year in a row the Steelers are coming to the Meadowlands, which doesn't happen very often. And Ethan and I were there last year, and we'll be there again this year. That stadium is black and yellow.
Yeah.
Jet fans sell their tickets like crazy, and that is a home game for the Steelers in the Meadowlands. I mean, it's just amazing how many Steelers.
Well, that tells you the Jets fans are smart, because they know their team is horrible, especially with Vic. So why don't they just sell tickets and make some money?
Exactly.
You know,
maybe the Eagles fans should do that.
Yeah, but Eagles fans won't get the money they really need.
That's true.
That's true.
No, they
I
would.
had a couple pennies in my pocket for an Eagles ticket.
No,
you know, I once left 2 Eagles tickets on my windshield, came back and they were 4. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And the car was gone or on fire.
The tires were gone. I was up on blocks.
No. But if you want to join in the conversation, feel free to give us a call, 856-232-7077 or 856-232-7078. Also, staying within the NFL realm, there will be no cheerleading in Buffalo this year.
Well,
as some former cheerleaders apparently filed a lawsuit. Former Jill filed a lawsuit against the Buffalo Bills management team that actually manages the Jills, and they apparently, in response to that, the management team notified the Bills, and now there will be no cheerleading in Buffalo this year. Well, which is I think it's going to feel weird seeing a team without any cheerleaders on the sidelines.
My understanding is that the Bills distributed a 12-page document, how the cheerleaders need to act and what they should do, and there was some explicit instructions on how they take care of their hygiene. 12-page document for the cheerleaders, but I understand that the handbook that goes out to the players is 1 page long. So I think the Bills have their priorities wrong.
All right, and I see we got a caller from Virginia. We got Brian on the line. Hi, Brian.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. I was curious. I don't know if you guys already did. Are you guys going to talk about the UFC event that went on last night?
Oh, John Jones versus Glover Teixeira. I did not see that, Brian. Did you happen to watch that fight?
I didn't actually see it. I read about it. I saw the highlights and things like that.
I did hear that Teixeira was rushed to the hospecial right after the decision.
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I checked the UFC headlines this morning, and Teixeira was rushed right to the hospital. But I think Jones really hasn't met his match quite yet.
I'm not a big UFC fan, but my understanding is, I mean, Jones is one of these really up-and-coming guys, and it'd be nice to see him take on somebody that will push him a little bit.
Well, he's pound for pound the number one, I think, fighter. And Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've been told is he's very arrogant. Very arrogant. He pushes the envelope with Dana White, the president of UFC.
He's young. He's only 26 years old. He's going to be arrogant. But yeah, no, he's pound for pound now. Well, he's going to be, if not already, because Silva's basically out of the game now. St. Pierre's out of the game now, so he's kind of the top dog until until somebody else holds the belt for that long. They're not even going to be considered. But John Jones, I don't think he's not gonna actually have a challenge, in my opinion, until Daniel Cormier gets to him. Once Daniel Cormier gets to him, again, once Daniel has a few more fights under his belt and he gets a little bit better with the stand-up game, not that it's not excellent already, but that's when John Jones is going to have a problem. Daniel's an Olympic wrestler.
Well, Brian, explain to the listeners Daniel and where he's come from and what weight class he was in.
Daniel Cormier is a world-renowned freestyle wrestler. He is an Olympic silver medalist, I think. I could be wrong, but he's definitely a medalist. But I'm almost positive it's silver. But his wrestling ability is just unbelievable. He was thrown into, on short notice, mind you, into a Strikeforce heavyweight tournament, and he won. He destroyed everybody. The fight for the title, or the win for that tournament, was against the babyface assassin, and I'm forgetting his actual name. It'll come to me. Anyhow, that's the babyface assassin is his nickname. Is a really good catch wrestler, very good. And he just threw him around like he's a ragdoll, and he's done that to everybody that he's got in the ring with. His wrestling is just
he was in the heavyweight division. He trains with UFC heavyweight champion Cain Velasquez. But if Daniel doesn't get the fight with John Jones, I like to see a catchweight fight between Cain and John Jones. I would definitely like to see that.
That's not going to happen for a long time.
Yeah, but that would be a good fight because Jones definitely has the leg and arm reach, but Cain Velasquez, I mean, he's like a tick on an open wound. He does not let you come up for air at all during a fight.
Yeah, I mean,
true, but the thing is you're looking at a John Jones at 205 right now. Imagine a John Jones at 265, because he'll easily be able to get to that weight.
Yeah, but Brian, I think that would slow Jones down. I think that would slow his speed down and his ability to be as flexible as he is now.
I mean, Jones is a kicker, right? I mean,
yeah, he's a very good wrestler too. He's got a long reach, long leg and arm reach, and he keeps fighters at a distance.
He's unorthodox. He doesn't really fight, except for last night. Last night, evidently, he was fighting basically in clinch range the whole time, which is
he was trying to avoid Glover's punching power.
Yeah, my understanding is, I mean, he doesn't game plan as much as a lot of guys do. He's more of a freelance kind of guy. But I think that might be an issue as he gets some tougher competition.
I would say, yeah, especially if he fights Daniel, he's got to come in with a game plan.
Right.
Definitely come in with a game plan.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that if Daniel decides to take him to the ground, it's going to go to the ground. And if Daniel decides that he wants to stay down there, the odds are it's going to stay down there. So I just don't see. I can't see John Jones out wrestling Daniel Cormier. But at the same time, Daniel Cormier is only 5'11". So if John Jones could use that 81-inch range to stay away from him, then that's going to be a bad night for Daniel Cormier.
Yeah, it's going to be a good fight. So hopefully Dana White, the CEO of UFC, will schedule that. That's definitely a pay-per-view event I would pay for, even go to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't watch UFC all that much, but every time I do watch it, I wonder to myself why I don't watch it more. I mean, it's exciting stuff. I stopped watching boxing when Tyson bit Holyfield's ear off. That's when I said, all right, I've had enough. I'm not paying $60 for this stuff. And then I watch UFC and I go, this is the real deal. I mean, and these are guys who respect each other. There's a tremendous amount of respect that goes on in there, and it's exciting to watch. And I've got to watch a lot more.
There's something.
What's ironic too is MMA is much safer than boxing. Boxing is actually more dangerous in the long term for fighters than MMA is, and for the longest time, MMA was illegal across the country. New York, for crying out loud, they look at MMA as the plague. So it's really weird. But what a lot of people don't understand is the boxing gloves, they actually, because you can take more punches, you don't get knocked out quite as quickly as you do with those little 4-ounce gloves. That are basically there just to protect the fighter's knuckles. So in the long run, and plus it's a one-dimensional game, you're only punching. There is no gravity.
And most of the blows are to the head, which are much more dangerous than blows to the body.
Yeah.
What's that?
And it's mostly blows to the head in boxing, which is much more dangerous than blows to the body.
Right, yeah. So statistically, you're getting hit in the head a lot more. That's one of the only options that you have to strike. So, yeah, it's really odd. But yeah, MMA is basically a real life chess match. It's a gladiator. It's so unbelievable if you get on the mat. If you ever get a chance, get on the mat with some jiu-jitsu guys.
That's okay. I'll pass.
What's that?
I said I'll pass. I'd rather just watch it. It seems like I have a better shot at watching.
Yeah, your health is a lot better in the long run if you just sit there and watch it.
Definitely.
But hey, Brian, thanks for calling in and bringing up the fights last night. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, hey, thank you guys.
All right,
thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks for the call, Brian.
Hey guys, not to go off the beat, but I just got a text message from somebody saying, why are we only talking about the Giants, Steelers, and Eagles and not the Green Bay Packers? Well,
I mean, listen, unless we had some beer and cheese, I don't know what else is there to talk about in Wisconsin.
I don't plan to change my auto insurance either.
And the Packers are a decent team. I mean, the reason they didn't make the playoffs last year is because their quarterback got hurt.
Well, half the team was hurt.
Yeah,
true. But I mean, their game against the Eagles went to Lambeau Field last year, and had their quarterback not gotten hurt, I mean, the Packers were playing their third or fourth string quarterback by the end of the game. Had the Packers quarterback not gotten hurt last year, it would have been a decidedly different game when the Eagles went to Lambeau Field. We were just lucky that we caught the Packers at a good time with their quarterback hurt, and we emerged from Lambeau with a victory. But with a healthy Packers team, they're gonna probably compete for the division this year.
Well, they have no
but I mean, I'm looking at their schedule here, and first of all, I think the Packers need to figure out who they are. Right? They used to have a great running game. They had great receiving corps. Yeah. They had a great defense for a while. I don't know that they have anything that's great right now if Rodgers can't stay healthy. But I'm looking at their first 8 games. They're at Seattle, home against the Jets, at Detroit, at Chicago, home against Minnesota, at Miami, at Carolina, Carolina at home, and then at New Orleans.
How easier could their schedule get?
That's a pretty good schedule for them. I think Seattle will be tough for them. Chicago, regardless of what Chicago does this year, Chicago always plays Green Bay tough.
And Chicago was a good team last year. They have good wide receivers on the team. They get their quarterback back healthy again this year.
Yeah.
But their defense always comes to play no matter what.
Carolina can be a tough game for them, and New Orleans will be a tough game for them. And then they come back after the bye week and play Chicago again. Then they've got a cookie game against Philadelphia, which they should be able to walk all over. I'm sorry, are we back to the Eagles? Didn't mean to do that. No, but I'm just saying, I mean, the Jets, Detroit, Minnesota, Miami, those should be easy games for them. So we'll see what kind of momentum they pick up. But again, I think they need to figure out what their identity is. Are they going to be a running team? Are they a throwing team? Can Rodgers stay healthy and go from there?
I think that's what it all comes down to. If Rodgers can stay healthy, I think they'll be a throwing team. If not, they're giving it to Lacey.
Very true. Lacey's a good running back.
Lacey might not have all the speed, but he can pound his way through defenders.
And who broke Rodgers' collarbone last year? That's right. Thank you very much.
Well, I thank the Giants for doing that, because had the Giants not done that,
who took Vic out last year again?
Well,
that would be the Giants.
And the year before?
I'm just saying, with the Vic thing, a 2-year-old could have taken him out. just flick him in the knee, he goes down.
Vic got hurt running out of bounds on the sideline.
No, he's
last year.
Being chased by Tuck.
And where's Tuck this year?
Oakland. Yes.
Well, that's where everybody goes to retire.
Yeah,
with
Lamar
Woodley as well.
Matt Schaub. Everyone goes there when they're done.
Yeah.
You can't play for the big boys anymore, you go to the Raiders.
True.
It's like going play for the independent league in baseball.
Yeah.
Go play for the Newark Bears.
Now, here's something. Again, if you want to join in the conversation, 856-232-7077, 856-232-7078. Another big issue might be a little bit up Ethan's alley here is a vote that happened on Friday over at Northwestern University that could change eventually down the line, years from now, change college athletics with Northwestern taking a vote of if they want to unionize or not, and form a union, and that could change. Now the thing is that we won't know the vote until who knows when. It's got to go.
So a little background on this is, the Northwestern players earned the right by the decision by the National Labor Relations Board to unionize. That the Relations Board recognizes those players as employees, and they have the right to unionize. Now, they would only apply to private universities. So there's only about 17 universities that in Division I, right?
Yeah.
So it would only apply to those teams. So it's only 17 universities that it would apply to, and the university is appealing that decision. So it's being appealed to higher ups in the National Relations Board, and then it could go to court. So it could be years before we have a decision on this, or before we even know the vote that was taken, because that'll be sealed until it's all done.
Yeah, it's been reported that it'll be weeks to months before the actual vote gets revealed. Different people have come out saying different things, but the center for Northwestern said he doesn't think that enough people voted yes, which doesn't really necessarily mean all that much, because it's completely unanimous. No one knows who voted what. But it seems like just by talking to people on the team, it looks like it might not happen.
I'm totally against unions, regardless of what they're for. And I'll probably get shot walking out of this building, but I think the unions are just a killer of our economy. They want more money for less. That's just my personal opinion. So anything talking about union, I always vote no.
Well, I think there's a big discussion. That's more of a political discussion on unions. But I think what the Northwestern players are trying to get is they're not looking for money. They're looking for better medical coverage, and their scholarships protected if they get hurt. What a university can do is if a player gets hurt playing football, they can lose their scholarship.
Yeah.
They don't have to renew their scholarship. Also, if a player is injured while playing for the university, once the player is no longer on the team, the university is no longer responsible for their medical bills. Those are some of the key things that these players are looking for. Whether or not they need a union in order to get them is debatable. So I understand that. I think that the ramifications, and I happen to be pro-union in most cases, I think that the ramifications of unionizing college players creates a much larger problem. And, it goes down to what about the swimmers? And what about universities who can't afford to cover some of these other issues?
You're playing a sport, contact sport, swimming, whatever it is. You know the risk. It's like buying a used car. You're buying someone else's problems. You know what I mean? You know the risk when you play these sports. So why should the university continue to pay medical bills if you got injured and you're no longer on the team? You know the risk. It's like the players' union in the NFL.
If I got hurt at work and I was no longer able to work, but my injury was caused by my job, why should I bear those expenses?
But you know the risk going into it. Why? I mean,
but I wouldn't bear the expenses. My company would still be, the company I work for would still be responsible to pay them. So why doesn't that extend to?
Correct. But are you in a union?
I'm not.
So they're still going to pay for it,
right? But and that's what I'm saying. I think there might be ways for this to be accommodated.
Yeah, but this is not a job for the students. It's an extracurricular activity, right?
They are earning money for the university. I think it's equivalent to a job. Like I said, I don't think they need to unionize in order to accomplish some of these things. I think there are other ways to do it. But this is the road that they've taken. I don't think it's going to pass, and I think it's right for it not to pass because I think there are other, like I said, there are other ramifications of what that means to other sports within the university.
Well, don't college students, when they go scholarships, and I don't know much about college sports, but don't the students sign a contract with the university saying university is offering you a scholarship to play sports here, right? Well, can that student or the agent or the parent say, hey, I want a stipulation in that contract that if I get injured, I'm no longer able to play the sport. You're continuing to pay my medical bills,
Yes,
because if the university wants that student to make the money and shine on the field, they're going to say, yeah, no problem, Ethan, I'll sign this contract,
Yeah, I think it's a little more technical than that, but I think there needs to be more of a concerted effort, and this is one of the reasons why they feel they need to unionize is in order to be able to collectively bargain some of those to get the masses, and that's really the benefit of union is to be able to collectively bargain some of that stuff. But like I said, I think the ramifications on the flip side of it, I think there are some positives that can come out of it, but the ramifications on the flip side of it for other sports within the universities and amateur eligibility and things like that get jeopardized by unionizing.
I agree.
Yep. Although amateurability is a whole nother subject, and whether or not players should get paid and things like that is a whole nother topic. But
you mean students? Right. Yeah.
As students. Yeah. And again, if you want to join in the conversation, 856-232-7077, 856-232-7078. Turning the conversation to baseball real quick. There was a big incident involving the Yankees this week, and Michael Pineda absolutely putting pine tar on his neck.
He either had pine tar on his neck or he was melting.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Listen. Before the game, he was polishing his dining room table with that stuff, and he just happened to scratch the back of his neck, and stuff came on there. I mean, come on, guys. Right?
He was polishing his dining room table in between the first and second inning.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah, he had it in the dugout,
Here's my whole thing about this, is, first of all, I don't think that pitcher using pine tar should be illegal, and I think most batters will tell you that they'd rather, on a cold night, know that the pitcher knows where the ball's going and have the feel for it, and anything they can use to do that is fine. I think but the bottom line is it is illegal. It's accepted as long as it's not blatant. It was 2 weeks earlier. There was a ton of media coverage that showed he was using it. It was on his hands. he comes out 2 weeks later, and it's even more blatant. It's kind of a sticking the middle finger in the face of the situation.
And he did
That's my problem.
And he did it during the Red Sox game, and
which is the same team they were playing 2 weeks earlier.
Yeah,
exactly.
And they let him get away with it.
They let him slide, and then he puts it on his neck towards the Red Sox dugout.
Right.
I'm like,
and
it's unintelligent.
It's one of those
You're right,
things.
he is unintelligent, putting some type of chemical on his neck.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where you have two bitter rivals facing. Is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. You have two teams that are bitter rivals facing each other in the Red Sox and the Yankees. You don't get much more heated than that. And it was almost like the Red Sox manager didn't want to do it, but it was shown on ESPN, and it was almost like, you got to do it. It was so blatant that he had to do it, and he didn't want to.
Right. Well, Farrell was a pitcher, and he understands the situation, but it was so blatant that he couldn't let it go. And he was almost apologetic towards it at the end of the game. But, you just can't let it go. Listen, there are smart ways to do it. And everybody has come out and said exactly how you do it. You can put it on the bill of your cap and cover it with rosin. You can put it inside your sleeve. The catchers will generally put it inside their shin guards, and when they go to throw the ball back, they'll touch it and touch the shin guard. The other thing is a lot of catchers will put it like on the back of their face mask, and when it comes out to see the pitcher will touch him in the head. Things like that. There's a lot of ways to do it without putting it out there in the open. Even the Negros had come out and said it was stupid. So if Phil Negro is saying what you did was stupid, guy who cheated every single way he could figure out how to do it, I think you're in a bad position.
I totally agree.
I agree. One thing I did want to get your opinion on that I wasn't able to do last week was the Ike Davis trade going to Pittsburgh. And then
hitting a grand slam the next day?
Yeah.
Two grand slams in 2 games. Thank you.
I think that it was a positive trade all around. Ike was never going to make it in New York. Just the history is bad. They're tired of the ups and downs with him. I think it's a great new start for him, and I think the Mets needed to get him out of New York. It just wasn't going to work. I'm not a huge Ike Davis fan. I don't hate him as much as most people do. I wish him good luck in Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh will see the same thing from him that the Mets saw, where he comes out real fast, he plays well, and then he takes a nosedive. And when Ike does bad, Ike does bad. I mean, he will hit in the 130s for you for a while, and that's not right. He's very inconsistent. Well, no, he's consistent. He's good for several weeks, and then he's bad for several weeks. It's not up and down, up and down. He's never going to be, a high 200s consistent hitter.
Now, do you think being just away from like the New York media conglomerate spotlight, getting a fresh start in Pittsburgh, that he might become more consistent?
Yeah, and I think McCutcheon takes so much of that media attention, even when they're on the road, that there might not be that pressure on him. New York's a tough place to play, regardless.
It is,
and I think the Yankees are going to see the same thing with Beltran. I think Beltran's a good player. I don't think when the pressure comes down to it that he's going to be able to perform with the Yankees, based on what I've seen him do with the Mets. But then he goes to St. Louis and Houston. St. Louis and Houston, he played well. The media is not as tough on you when you're not doing well. I don't think Ike was able to handle that. And you could see in his interviews when he was struggling that he would just shut down. And he had a hard time with it. So I think Pittsburgh will be a lot easier for him.
I think so. That's been my opinion. I think he'll become he may not be a superstar, but I think he could become a more consistent player. Maybe hit about, 250, 260 around there, a little bit of power. I just think that being away from and he was kind of like the Mets kind of poster boy for all their down season, and it's almost like he's kind of been taking that on by himself all these years. So I think just getting a fresh start in Pittsburgh, he'll become a more consistent player, and just being out of the limelight and not being in the headlines all the time, I think he'll become a better hitter.
It's kind of like you say to an ex-girlfriend with not such a nasty breakup. I wish him well.
Exactly. And also this week, the Mets have a local Philadelphia flavor, as they called up Mr. Bobby Abreu from their minor leagues.
So the Mets became, I think, is the second team in the last 10 years to have two 40-year-olds starting the same game when Bobby Abreu and Bartolo Colon were in the lineup together.
Yeah.
Hey, we're catching up to the Yankees on age.
And the Phillies. The Phillies are an elderly team. And Abreu, say what you want about him, he can still hit. He can still hit a little bit. He can still draw walks, which is what intrigued Ruben Amaro and the Phillies in spring training.
It should intrigue an American League team.
Exactly, but, as a designated hitter.
It's not, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think he's a liability in the field.
No question. That's why the Phillies ended up releasing him towards the end of spring training. They figured that they couldn't carry him, and he would limit Sandberg in the moves that he could do, and so forth. So that was kind of the reason the Phillies ended up releasing him towards spring training. Listen, but he can still hit.
He can still hit. So I think if he's willing to take that role of coming off the bench late in the game for a pinch hit, and he can stay warm and be able to do that, and play once a week or so in the field, I think that'll help. I don't think it's a bad move for the Mets.
I agree.
And they had to move Young down. I mean, Young, right? Chris Young.
Chris Young is down. Who was moved down?
Who was it?
Andrew Brown was moved down.
Andrew Brown. I'm sorry.
They would not move Chris Brown down. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, no, I apologize. Andrew Brown. He was batting in. Was he above the Mendoza line at that time?
I don't know if he was probably hovering right around it.
Yeah, so they had to make a move, and somebody who can hit and somebody who could fill that spare outfielder spot. It's beneficial.
Oh, definitely. And again, if you want to get in on the closing minutes of the show, feel free to give us a call, 856-232-7077, 856-232-7078. And we'd be remiss if we didn't close out the show with a little Flyers-Rangers talk. I've been going...
Why? Why would we be remiss?
Because it's the big thing going on. NHL playoffs.
My stomach started settling down after we talked about the Eagles. Now you're going to bring the Flyers.
And hockey? Come on.
Hockey is one of the best.
Hockey is figure skating with a stick.
It is not. It requires a lot of skill. A lot.
What a skill?
Please.
I will say, watching guys who are in the upper 200s in weight on little blades is interesting to watch them try to control their bodies.
They make it a little tough every now and then when they throw fists and stuff, but it's still figure skating with a stick.
The best picture I saw, and I don't watch hockey, but the best picture I saw was a picture of a Flyers player slamming a Rangers player into the boards, and there's a fan there with the middle finger up against the glass. That kind of depicts how classy Philly is. Once again.
No, it was our former player that had scored a goal, which essentially iced the game for the Rangers. I believe it was, and it wasn't a good situation. But the Flyers and Rangers go into today's game, which will be starting in about 6 minutes or so. The series is tied 2 games apiece.
Every team. It's like Little League, right? Every team makes the playoffs.
Right. Not necessarily every team.
2 don't, right? The Islanders didn't and the Devils didn't. That was it.
Exactly. Not every team makes the playoffs in hockey, but
they have 1 season every year and a half because that's how long it takes them to finish.
Yeah, right.
Well, just because
it's like watching The Sopranos. Once every year and a half, they come up with a new season.
Hey, that was a good show.
It was a good show.
Hockey.
But just because the playoffs last until June. And the season starts again in October. They have a little bit of an off season there, but the NHL playoffs are excellent viewing. It's been tremendous.
Let me tell you something. If I had 2 channels and one was hockey and the other one was static, Which one do you think I'd watch?
You want to get a hamburger?
You would watch the hockey.
No, I wouldn't.
Sure, you would.
No, it's boring.
It is not boring.
I don't mind going to a game. I watch it. I'll go to a game every 3 years or so. But I don't know.
I can get into it if I'm there, but if I'm watching it on TV, nope, not interested.
I will say the hockey experience is different on TV and in person. Definitely different. They say a lot of times the same thing about baseball is
that's what I was just thinking.
If you're there at the game, it's a lot different than watching it on TV. Football, I think, is...
at the game, at the hockey game, you can actually catch a tooth that flies out. Right? And then have them sign it at the end.
Yeah, it gets sprayed with blood.
Yeah. Whereas I think the NFL game is better on TV than it is maybe in person. I mean, you get, cheering for your team and everything, but I think
there's a lot of downtime in an NFL game when you're at the game that you don't realize when you're watching it on television. Baseball, if you're the kind of fan who can strategize along with the game, it's a lot more exciting on television. It's as exciting on television as it is in person. But if you're just watching it to watch it, I guess it could be a little slow. I happen to love baseball, and I'm trying to think of what the next move is and kind of thing, that kind of thing. So that keeps me into a game. But I mean, hockey. I think hockey's too fast for a camera to follow.
Exactly,
which makes it even. I don't know. I've never been a hockey fan, and it's hard for me to get into it. I do like to watch my friends who are hockey fans go back and forth on Facebook with the Jets, with the New York and Philly people. But
which I've been doing with your buddy, Mr. Falcone, who I'm sure will be tuning into the game in a few minutes and cheering on the Rangers. Unfortunately, he's going to be disappointed later on this afternoon when the Flyers win and
I think anybody watching the game is going to be disappointed when they realize they just wasted 3 hours watching hockey.
Jay, when are you going to realize that Philadelphia sports is a pimple on society that just needs to be popped?
It is not. It is not. Because the Philadelphia teams are always competitive. Unlike
they're always competitive. No. Even when they're competitive, they lose at the end.
Yes.
But there's the hope. There's the hope.
There's the hope. There's always next year.
Can you really say that the Phillies, where the average starting age is like 80, that they're really a competitive team?
Within the division.
Within the division. There's one good team in the division.
What's the hope? What's the hope? The hope that you can make it to the off-season faster? I don't understand what the hope is when you know you're not going to win a championship.
Ever.
You're talking about competitive within the division. I don't think it's that much to cheer about when you beat out the Mets and the Marlins. You shouldn't really be all that proud of that. If those are the only teams you can beat out.
Do the 76ers have hope?
A little bit.
They have hope because they have draft picks.
All right.
A little bit, Yeah, you make the playoffs. My feeling is you make the playoffs in any sport and anything can happen. The object is
if you make the playoffs in Philly, you know what's going to happen.
Not necessarily.
You're lucky if you play
because a few years ago the Phillies did win the World Series. So there's the possibility that anything can happen.
Right. I'm not going to take away that the Phillies have won World Series. The Sixers have won championships. And the glorified figure skating with sticks have won championships. But I'm a big football guy.
Yeah.
And your Eagles have not won a championship.
No.
I'll say this about the Phillies winning the World Series. Even the blind cat catches a mouse every once in a while.
You're right.
Very true.
Like I said, anything can happen. But we want to thank everybody for listening to the Sports Skillet radio show this week. You can check the podcast of the show on YouTube. You can also comment on our Facebook page, Sports Skillet Show. Thank you guys for coming in this week. I think it's been an awesome show this week. Again, if you want to catch us, tune in next week at 11 o'clock. And that'll do it for the Sports Skillet radio show this week. Again, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and again, thanks everybody for tuning in this week.